welcome to eHealth TV. I'm Shanna Crispin and this is eHealth Insider's Essential News on Video. Last week we reported on the government's announcement that it's going to accelerate the dismantling of the National Programme for IT in the NHS. That announcement came following a review from the Major Projects Authority. This week the actual review from the authority was made public. With me to talk about its content is Managing Editor of eHealth, Lyn Whitfield. Welcome, Lyn. Firstly, Lyn, we've all been waiting for this report for a while now, but perhaps the report was not as detailed and thorough as what we would be expecting.
Yes, I mean, obviously this report, a lot was made of it. The background is that the National Audit Office, of course, did another big critical report on the national programme at the instigation of Richard Bacon, PAC member who really is very concerned about the value for money of the MPfIT contracts. The PAC then held a hearing on that report itself. They were very critical. They were concerned to get the Cabinet Office involved in the ongoing contracts, particularly the one for CSC in the North Midlands and East, where there's a lot of money still to be spent. And currently they've managed to get the system they're trying to deploy, Lorenzo, into about 2 hospitals in years and years and years. I mean, it's been going incredibly slowly. So it was with quite a lot of fanfare that it was announced that the Cabinet Office was going to be looking at all this, and yet the report that's come out looks like it's been a very quick piece of work, very rushed, probably hasn't heard from all that many people, may not have asked the right questions, and the report itself is just riddled with errors. I mean, they haven't spelt some of these key trust names right, they haven't understood the market. It's quite worrying. If this is, you know, a really big major review of the national programme and they're making some really key contract decisions on the back of it, then you have to say it looks like they're not making those decisions on very good evidence.
Okay. Now, the report actually made 3 recommendations to the government, but that wasn't really clear from last week's announcement, was it? No,
we had the classic thing last week, as we said in last week's eHealth TV. You know, they rang up the Daily Mail, they said, we've got a great story for you. The political advisors presented the bits to their political reporters that they really wanted to get across. They got some cracking headlines on the eve of the Labour Party conference saying we're dismantling this big, wasteful Labour Party programme. Boring things like detail. What did the programme actually do? How much did it actually spend? What's still got to be done? Which bits worked? Which bits didn't work? I mean, really, you don't want that on a front-page newspaper, and they didn't bother to go into it. Yes, the report that we got out is obviously more nuanced because it has to go through the different sections of the report. It says, as we would expect really, because the government had already announced it, that they're going to retain some of the big projects that have worked, like N3, the broadband network, Choose and Book, the booking system, although it's not very clear how they're going to run those going forward. And on the contract front, it's not quite clear what they're going to do with that big CSC contract. It says they should put some very firm constraints on it if it's going to continue, and if they can't get those in place, they should scrap it, but that's not quite the same as scrap it now. And they also say from another big contracting round that's going on in the south of England that they should continue with that, even though the framework they're going to use is going to run out in January. So again, it doesn't seem like a very brave decision. You might as well keep going with something that's only got 3 months to run anyway. Okay, so what else do we know about those contracts in the south then? Well, we've been, it's very complicated. Fujitsu was the local service provider for the south until 2008. They pulled out in circumstances that are still subject to legal action. BT picked up some of the work, got a very big and expensive contract for doing some of it. Everyone else was left without any systems. The Department of Health announced it would run these big framework procurements, and it's been stop-start ever since, really. They didn't get off to a very fast start, then there was the election, then it all got stopped by the Treasury, then it got going again, then it got stopped by the NAO report. We know that they've run a community procurement, but the Cabinet Office report seems to indicate that actually the Treasury stopped that again, so goodness knows what's happening there. Acute was on the verge of being awarded, as far as we can tell, because the Department of Health had been going around asking trusts what they wanted from it. again, they're right on the deadline for actually managing to get anything out of that. And poor old ambulances seem to have vanished into the ether.
Okay, 3 months though, continue. We'll see what happens.
We will see what happens. I have to say that I think most of our readers, most commentators are not exactly holding their breath, and then that will really leave trusts in the south with a big question about what to do next, because we've been seeing a lot of procurements, as you know, because you cover this area, from the North Midlands and East, where trusts are going out and doing innovative things. We haven't quite seen that in the south, presumably because there was the faint hope that perhaps it would get sorted out at a more regional level. If that's not going to happen, we're going to have to see trusts doing things at a time of real financial strain, and that's going to be very, very difficult.
Okay, thanks, Lyn. For more in-depth coverage on the MPA's review, you can find news stories and analysis on the end of NPfIT on our news pages.